All right, folks, welcome back. We're going to break down UFC St. Louis in this video here. All of the links are in the description. Please take your time and check those out. I'll see you guys in the first fight. In the women's flyweight division for what I believe is the toughest fight to predict on this entire card, just because of the way that these two line up in this matchup, right? Veronica Hardy, she's 3-2 in her last 5. JJ Aldrich, she's also 3-2 in her last 5. This is a tough one to call, guys. Really tough fight, and I don't feel confident in either side, but let's break it down. Veronica Hardy is probably the better striker as far as if you put them both on a heavy bag and had them go. Veronica Hardy is going to look cleaner, right? She's got good combinations. She moves really well on her feet. She's fast. Her punches look crisp. Kicks look crisp. All that good stuff. She's a decent grappler, but I think she's probably not as good of a grappler as Aldrich, but she's a decent grappler with decent takedowns, decent top pressure, but her takedown defense is not really that good. On the other hand, you got JJ Aldrich, who's not quite as good of a striker, but she does have good volume. She works the jab really well, and she can put together combinations, but she doesn't really have any power on her punches, at least from what we've seen thus far. In the wrestling department, though, her takedown defense is fantastic, and she works back to her feet very quickly when she does taken down. She has good takedowns-ish. She can mix them in when she needs to. A lot of times they come in just from from sticking the jab, working that volume, and then, decide to take you down. Gets the takedown. For me, this is an incredibly hard fight to pick, and I find myself just kind of going back and forth, and I just have to make a pick on it. And maybe it's recency bias, and I'm sure there's a certain person that I know in the comments is going to point this out to me that I'm picking based on recency bias, and that's okay. Go ahead and do that. I'm going to take Veronica Hardy, but no confidence. Don't bet this fight. I'm not betting this fight. If you want to bet the over, you can. I dropped my marker. That's all right, but it's not. It's probably just like minus 450, 500, something like that. So maybe you throw it in a parlay and just say whatever, but anyway, let me know what you got. Next, Jared Gooden takes on Kevin Jousset. Jousset's 5-0 in his last 5 fights. A nice little win streak there. 3-2 for Gooden. But let me throw this at you. Keep in mind, this 3-2. One loss is on the regional scene prior to the UFC, and you think, oh, that's not good, right? Impa Kasanganay is the guy he lost to, who's absolutely tearing it up over there in PFL. A lot of people thought he beat Johnny Eblen. Close fight. Dude has looked amazing. So that's ever since he left the UFC, Kasanganay has looked amazing. So that loss, it's a loss you can kind of forgive. You know what I mean? I feel like Kasanganay beats Jousset as well. In addition to that, his other loss is an extremely short notice matchup to Carlston Harris, who's an absolute beast. That guy's come back from the clutches of defeat and won before. The guy's constantly in the fight. He's an extremely skilled fighter, and Gooden made a good account of himself in that matchup on such short notice. So the 3-2, although it doesn't look as nearly as impressive as a 5-0, the level of competition here is much higher than the level of competition here. So keep that in mind when we break this fight down. When we look at him skill for skill, though, we look at Jousset. Dude's a solid striker, right? He's got good straight punches, and due to his extended stance with his hands out, they land really quick. He's not bringing them back and winding up on them. He's popping them here, just like that. Now, they don't have as much zip to them when he lands them from there, but what they do have is the element of surprise. You don't see them coming, you don't have as much time to react. So it almost feels like these punches are having a lot more power than they really are, because you don't see it, and when you don't see it, your head snaps back before you even realize what happened. So that is a big advantage for him here. He's got good knees up the middle and a solid leg kick, but the one thing I don't like about his leg kick is that he just kind of throws it naked. Doesn't set it up, nothing like that, and he is open for the counter on that, and his striking defense, since his head doesn't really move a ton, that is a problem for him. In the grappling, he's got that judo background, right? So he has the throws, things like that. The cage push, though, is what I think he would want to use in this matchup to win some minutes in between the striking exchanges. He needs to push Gooden up against the cage, control in there, and then go back to the striking. Now, his takedown defense is good, and I don't think we're going to really get a grappling-heavy matchup. If we do, it's just that cage push like I was talking about. On the other side, for Gooden, solid striker as well. Plenty of volume. He sticks that jab really well, and unlike Jousset, who has his hands kind of extended here a lot of the time, he's got one here and he's sticking it like that. Well, usually when he throws his jab, it's down here and he sticks it like that, and then he'll bring him up to block. But a lot of times his hands are down nice and low, which is actually not that good. And he sticks that jab out and pumps it constantly. He'll bring it up if he needs to cover up for a strike. So for that jab, it's coming more from the traditional range rather than being extended out here, if you get what I mean. But good leg kick as well. He's got good head movement, and he's incredibly durable. So even if he's just moving side to side, trying to get out of the way, keeping his hands low, I think a lot of that's forward takedown defense is the hands low thing, and I get it. It makes sense to me. He does have pretty good takedown defense, so it makes sense. So what he's going to do is he's going to have to keep those hands low and move the head to defend strikes. And when he's moving the head, a lot of times what happens is even if he doesn't completely get out of the way, he ends up rolling with the shot a little bit, and it doesn't land that heavy on him compared to what you would assume. So, so the striking, pretty solid from both guys, right? The grappling, Gooden's not going to want to grapple here. He just doesn't. That's not like his game plan, right? It's not because he couldn't grapple with Jousset. I think it'd be, pretty close, but I do think Jousset is probably the little bit better grappler. But either way, Gooden can mix in the takedowns. He has pretty good takedown defense. If he does get taken down, he bounces back to his feet. Here's what I think is going to happen. Jousset is going to be winning a lot of the, the touches, the landing those shots, those quick ones right there. But what's going to happen is Gooden's going to do a good job of keeping his head moving, and none of these are going to land super flush. And then you're going to see these big, powerful shots land from Gooden. And I think he's going to be able to land the bigger shots and win the moments. And I think whether it goes down to the scorecards or if somebody gets a knockout, I favor Gooden a little bit in each of those. And with him being such a massive underdog, that seems silly to me. So I like Gooden here. And like I said, even if he gets out touched in this one, even though his volume is probably going to be equal to, if not better than Jousset, I do think that Gooden's going to land the bigger shots, the bigger moments, and I think the judges are going to favor that. And I also think that Gooden has the potential to knock out a guy like Jousset, especially if he throws one of those naked leg kicks and gets caught. And I don't so much see Gooden getting knocked out. So I'm taking Gooden. Let me know what you have, and I'll see you in the next. Up next, Jake Hadley takes on Charles Johnson. 2-3 in the last 5 fights for Johnson, 3-2 for Hadley. Both these guys have kind of had up and down careers in the UFC. Johnson was on a bit of a rough stretch until he pulled off that last victory and looked fantastic over Maxim. Hadley kind of just lost to some tough level competition, but he's done pretty well otherwise. So in this one here, Charles Johnson showed in his last matchup how good he can be, but he hasn't always lived up to that in the UFC. He's kind of underperformed. I think a lot of that comes down to him being kind of a slow starter, and he's just kind of having to battle back in every fight because he's looked good in moments in every fight. He just gives up too many rounds early on. So for Charles Johnson, the skill set, guy's a solid striker with good combinations where he can put together his punches and kicks fantastic. When he puts those together, he can start a combo with a kick, go into the punches, start a combo with the punches, end with a kick, or even put it in the middle where it's, like punch, punch, kick, punch, punch, something like that. I'm just throwing stuff at you, but you know what I mean? He's mixing this stuff together, and that's a very high-level skill to have in the striking department. If you don't believe me, go try it. Try to have a fluid combination where you're striking with punches and kicks together in the same fluid combo, not separate things. Not like I've kicked, now I can start my punching combination. Try that. It's trickier than you think. Body kicks, excellent in the body kicks, and he's got good volume most of the time. Maybe not early in the fight, but as the fight goes on. He can strike well to all levels, legs, body, head. He's not really punching legs, but you know what I mean. He's kicking the legs, kicking the body, kicking the head, and he's punching to the body and the head. Does a good job at that. Charles Johnson is a complete fighter outside of just giving up the early part of the rounds, right? Grappling, very hard to hold down. Now, his takedown defense isn't the best, but he's very hard to hold down. He's got incredible scrambles, and if he ends up on top of you, he's good at mixing in his ground and pound with his submission attempts just to keep you guessing. On the other side, we have Jake Hadley. Dude's a good striker, uses a lot of kind of like boxing combinations, and he's pretty good with that. Decent enough power, and he can counter-strike pretty well. A lot of times his counter-strike will start his combination, and that's a good thing for Hadley in this matchup specifically, because if he's able to counter back off of one of the shots that Johnson has and put Johnson on the back foot, I think that's going to be a struggle for a guy like Charles Johnson, who does a lot better when he's moving downhill, working forward on his opponents. The solid grappling out of Hadley could be in trouble for Johnson as well, because I do think he has probably the better takedowns in this, and I don't think that's crazy to say. He has a good body lock and a good double leg, and I think he can drag this fight to the mat with either of those techniques. He's excellent at taking the back, and he's very quick to attack the submissions. He's had some guys in some submission holds, most notably Cody Durden, that should have tapped that guy. But Durden's a dog, and he powered through it. But otherwise, Hadley's got some good submissions, and I think if he locks something like he did on Durden, he could probably tap out Charles Johnson. Not that Johnson's like a quitter or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, anybody else probably would have tapped to some of the holds that Durden was put in. Ultimately, in this one, I think it's a good fight. I think it's going to be a fun fight, and I think Jake Hadley's probably going to be the victor here, but it's a tough one. Hadley was a pretty big favorite last I saw. I think money is coming in on Johnson, though, so we'll see where the line shakes out as to whether or not to play, but I do like Hadley here. Let me know what you think. At welterweight, Trey Waters takes on Billy Goff. This is an interesting one here because 4-1 in the last 5 for Waters, 5-0 for Goff. Both guys coming from the Contender Series with pretty good records, right? 9-2 overall, 8-1 overall. The height and reach is the difference, right? 5'10" with a 72.5-inch reach. Not bad. That's a good wingspan. It's a good height, especially, for the division. Nothing crazy. He's going against the 6'5" Trey Waters with a 77-inch reach. That's insane. This guy's a giant human being, and he can use that height and reach and that size advantage in a lot of these matchups. But let's break down the skill set of Billy Goff, and let's see how it matches up, right? This guy is all offense and no defense whatsoever. His pace, his pressure, his just grittiness is what wins him fights. And he's pretty good offensively everywhere. I don't know if good is necessarily the thing I should have used, because although his offense is good, his defense is abysmal, right? Dude has good volume, solid body shots. His dirty boxing is excellent. Now, if he gets inside of the range of Waters, he can use that really well. But the problem is his striking defense is terrible. He's going to get hit. He's tough. He's durable. He's gritty, but he's going to get hit. He's going to get pieced up, and he's going to have to close this big distance. So that's something to keep in mind. With the wrestling, dude's a pretty good wrestler, right? Offensively, anyway. Decent takedowns. The cage pushes there, and he can get guys against the cage and then start working that dirty boxing. So he can do that in the open mat clinch or in the cage push style dirty boxing. And he does a good job there from either side or either style. Trey Waters, he's a good striker who can work all right at range, but also pretty good in the pocket for a guy with the long ranges he has. And it's because of the style that he uses. He uses the elbows and knees inside, does a good job mixing those in, as opposed to just being at range and using his long reach, his long wingspan. So he's able to do either. He's incredibly accurate, and those knees up the middle on shorter guys, it's just, when you're that tall, just picking the knee up. You don't even have to really throw the knee. You just pick it up. Guys will run into it, and it sucks. Like, if you don't believe me, take your hand, open palm, and just smack the top of your knee, just like that, right on top of the kneecap. It hurts. It doesn't feel good, right? Now imagine if you walked into that with your face. Like, if somebody just brings the knee up like that and you just walk right into your face. It sucks, and it'll bust you up, it'll cut you open, and it also rattles you a bit because knees are hard. He just has to pick that knee up. He doesn't have to throw it. He doesn't have to put the hip into it, nothing. Just pick it up, and he touches that face with it, and it busts you up. Your face is a tender thing. It's the face skin rips easy. Those knees land heavy. So that's something that, being 6'5", it doesn't take much for him to get somebody in the face with that knee. Now, head movement is there, but the hands are low. Now, the hands are low because they work really well for his takedown defense. He has good takedown defense, but I don't so much like that they're low against a guy that's going to swing bombs. However, he's 6'5", so even though that lean back defense isn't a good move, it works okay for somebody this much taller than his opponents. He does sometimes get caught swinging wild under heavy pressure, and he's going to have that here because Billy Goff is going to come forward and try to knock his head off. So he could get caught swinging wild, which I put as a negative, but I mean, he can still crack you. So it could end up being okay for him. In the grappling, he does, like I said, have good takedown defense, but the thing that he's going to do is have the ability to work with those big, long, rangy arms to start looking for chokes as guys try to take him down. He defends the takedown and then starts looking for it, and that can either get guys to back off or it can land a submission, right? He did lose to Bonfim via Von Flue. It's kind of embarrassing. You shouldn't lose via Von Flue. You should know to let go of the head, but it was too late. Bonfim's pretty good fighter, and I think he would also beat Billy Goff. So it's not like I'm saying anything crazy here. So that was a red flag. He held on a little bit too long on that. Let the Von Flue get sunk in when it was too late after that. But other than that, those long arms can slip under the neck and get the choke. So for me, this one, I've got to take Trey Waters. I think he's the better fighter here. I think he's a more skilled fighter, and he's much more defensively sound. So I'm taking Trey Waters, but I would not be surprised if Billy Goff just puts the pressure on him, backs him up against the cage, and dirty boxes him until he puts him down. So keep that in mind. Waters is my pick. Let me know what you have. Folks, in this one here, we are in the strawweight division. Tecia Torres makes her return against Tabitha Ricci. Ricci is 4-1 in her last 5. Torres is 3-2. Now, right away, I want to mention the layoff. 2 years off for Torres. She left to go be a mom, right? Had to have a baby and all that good stuff. Takes a toll. Takes you away from training for a while. But now she's back. Physically looks good. We're going to see where she's at. We're going to base our skill set here off of what she was when she left. But keep in mind that some of that's going to change. Some might be better. Some might have diminished a little bit. It kind of depends. So we're gonna base off of that because it's all we can go off of. Let's start with the Torres side since we're already talking about her. Solid wrestling, right? She's got very good takedown defense, and I think that's going to suit her well in this matchup. She has good offensive takedowns, and she has very good top pressure once she gets there. She can kind of grind her opponents out and just wear them down with her grappling pressure. And on the feet, she has decent enough striking where she can come forward with plenty of volume and eat any shots coming back at her. She's incredibly durable. You're not going to knock her out, at least, the Tecia Torres that we know from before. You're not going to knock her out, and she's going to be able to come forward, put that pressure on you, and then break you with the grappling. But like I said, the 2 years off, it makes it tricky, right? On the other side, for Ricci, people are a little low on her after the Godinez fight. I get it, but she is still a solid grappler with a large toolbox. Girl's got good top pressure, and she has her best success getting takedowns against the cage. Now, to get it against the cage, she uses her striking. She has decent striking with good volume, but she strikes in these bursts where she just comes forward with 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, and then gets them against the cage, and then starts looking for that takedown. That's her way to do it. That's how she gets it done most of the time. When she sits there and tries to like pick her shots, whatever, that's when she starts getting picked apart by people with a little bit higher volume. Now, typically, Ricci is going to be the faster starter in most of her matchups, and I think if she does that here, it's going to be to her advantage over someone who maybe is trying to get a little bit of a feeling out process after taking 2 years off. You know what I mean? So for me, I've got to side with the girl who hasn't been away for so long, and I have to take Tabitha Ricci here. But if this was the Torres that if it wasn't, if like you just cut out that chunk of time for Torres, same Tabitha Ricci we have now, Torres from 2 years ago when she last left, I would probably take Torres. But with the layoff, I think the first round's probably going to go to Ricci, and I think from there on it's going to be a close fight. So I got to take Tabitha Ricci with very little confidence. Let me know what you have. We've got the lightweights. Terrence McKinney takes on Esteban Ribovics. This is an interesting one here because both of these guys have the opposite thing going for them. We've got Ribovics, who has the cardio, the longevity, probably loses early and wins late type of deal, versus the guy like Terrence McKinney, who all his upside is early and late he kind of falls off. So really interesting way that this is put together. And I'm not going to tell you anything new there, but he's going to tell you the same thing. That's just how it is. But coming into this one here, Ribovics 4-1 in his last 5, 3-2 for McKinney. Now, for Ribovics, he's a solid striker with good power. Works the body well, puts together his combinations really well. He can strike from either stance as well. You can go southpaw, you can go orthodox, doesn't matter. But his striking defense is just absolutely atrocious. It is horrible. Some of the worst I've ever seen, right? Dude's durable, but he has some very bad striking defense. And that goes into his all offense, no defense kind of style because it's the same thing in the wrestling. Dude's got decent wrestling offensively, decent takedowns. He can sweep from the bottom, and he's got a good kimura. But his takedown defense is bad, and once you flatten him out, he can be held down. Now, yes, those sweeps can come, not once he's flattened out. Once you get him flattened out once, that's it. He's staying there. But the cardio, like I said, if it goes late, Ribovics is going to take over towards the end of the fight. McKinney, good striker, got good power, quick head kick. I love that head kick. It's fast, it's like lightning, and it's probably going to land against a guy like Ribovics who doesn't block anything. Combinations are good, but he does leave his chin wide open, so that is a problem. When he's throwing his punches, his chin comes up, and he's just like that. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad. But the combos look good, and they hit hard, so there is that. On the wrestling, dude's got good takedowns, and he takes the back very well and can control from here. Start looking for submissions, landing his shots. If he gets to your back, you're probably not getting him off of there, especially not a guy like Ribovics, who doesn't have the sweeps from that position as well. He's probably going to get stuck with McKinney on his back if McKinney takes the back. He's also very kill or be killed, though. It makes sense. He just comes out hard and then falls apart. So keep that in mind. For me in this one, I think it's pretty cut and dry, and I like the guy who gets things done early as opposed to has to weather the storm. I'm taking Terrence McKinney because the guy hits like a truck, and he's going against a guy with no striking defense. The guy has great takedowns early on in a fight, and he's going against a guy who has bad takedown defense. It's cut and dry for me. I'm taking McKinney. Let me know what you have. Lightweight division here with one of the most polarizing, opposite stylistic matchups on the entire card. Chase Hooper, being the grappler, takes on Vyacheslav Borshchev, who is clearly the striker in this one. Both of these guys coming in with decent records, similar records that is. Both guys with only 3 losses, but 2-2 in a draw for Borshchev, 3-2 for Hooper. Hooper seems to lose to guys named Steve, so thankfully for Hooper, he's not fighting a guy named Steve in this one. In this one, though, Hooper is going to be much taller, much longer. He's 6'1" with a 74-inch reach as opposed to 5'11", 69-inch reach. Now, Borshchev has a weird wingspan, right, where his wingspan is actually shorter than his height by a decent margin, right? This would be 2 inches, right? That's a 5'9" wingspan with a 5'11" height. That's kind of odd for, a lot of fighters. A lot of fighters have either the same or longer wingspan. Some have shorter, but it is a tough thing, especially when you're a striker and trying to land those shots at range. But it is something to take into account. But by and large, this is the most ridiculously opposing, stylistic matchup you can get, right? Because Borshchev, clearly the better striker. He's an extremely high-level striker with exceptional kicks, exceptional power, works the body very well, puts punches and kicks together in combination. He's going to be far better striker. We don't need to cover that anymore. The defensive takedowns, not the best, but he does scoot to the cage and try to work his way back up. that's going to be a struggle for him. If he gets taken down here, Hooper is going to be in control of this fight because Hooper, way better grappler, right? He's very active from his back, and if he gets you to the mat, even if he pulls guard, I hate to see that, but the dude's so long and uses his long limbs to just crawl around your back like a freaking like tarantula or whatever. Like he just kind of like crawls around your back and takes it, and it doesn't make any sense. He could be on bottom just getting ground and pound to oblivion. The next thing you know, he's on your back trying to look for a rear naked choke or controlling you, and it's wild. He attacks submissions from everywhere. He has a deadly top game because he started really mixing in that ground and pound, slamming them pointy elbows, landing shots, and he's done a very good job of using that to set up everything with the submissions, things like that. But his open mat takedowns are not the best, and of course his takedown defense is abysmal, which, yeah, he doesn't care if he's taken down. He's very good in grappling. His takedowns, though, that's the problem. In this one, he just needs to get Borshchev to the mat any way possible in order to get this fight down there and then win the fight that way. If he can't, he's going to get destroyed because his striking is incredibly basic. It is developing, but when you're going against a striker this high level in Borshchev, it's not going to be close. It's going to look like it isn't. It's going to look like his striking has regressed, which I don't know that it has. I think it's getting better. I just don't think that it's going to stand a chance against Borshchev. So this is clearly, do you think Hooper gets this fight to the mat? And if you do, does he finish the fight when he does? Now, I think that kind of depends on how much time's left in the round. There's like 12 seconds left. I feel like Borshchev can survive 12 seconds. However, if there's more than a minute in the match, or in the round at least, Hooper might be able to get it done because the guy is so good on the mat. And Borshchev he doesn't have it there, right? He does not have it on the mat compared to a guy like Hooper. For me, I'm going to take Hooper. I think he's going to get the sub at some point, or just be able to control Borshchev for most of 2 rounds and probably just get absolutely dominated in one of the other rounds on the feet. So I'll take Hooper. I feel like he probably gets a submission at some point, but Borshchev could probably also just run him over on the feet, knock him out, and there's that. But like I said, Vyacheslav isn't named Steve, so we're going Hooper. Let me know what you have. Prospects next. Waldo Cortes-Acosta takes on Robelis Despaigne. Now, if you look here, Despaigne is 5-0 in his career. And here he is in the UFC in his second fight. He's going against a guy who's 11-1, 4-1 in the last 5. And we don't have a lot on Despaigne. A lot of his fights end quick. He's a very fast starter, powerful striker with killer instinct, and he's extremely athletic. We don't know much else. Obviously, he's never lost. He was held up against a cage in like his first fight for a little while, but like, yeah, I mean, we haven't really seen much else. He did trip, I guess, or like slip or whatever in his last matchup, but he bounced right back to his feet because he's a freak athlete and got the knockout in, under a minute, whatever. We don't know much, okay? On the other side for Waldo, we know a little more. Dude goes to decision a lot, so we know a little bit more. He's got good striking, good boxing, particularly. He doesn't really do a whole lot in the kicking department. It's mostly just boxing. Solid jab, pretty good volume, and he can put together combinations as he starts to get going. Good movement on the feet, but he just doesn't defend leg kicks whatsoever. That's the story of his career. He's tough. He just keeps going. But those legs get kicked up and beat up the whole time. Takedown defense, not the best, but I don't think he's going to have to worry about it because Despaigne comes from a Taekwondo background. Honestly, I'm just making a pick for the sake of a pick. We're going to take Despaigne because I think he's a monster of a human being, and that's where we're going to go with. But honestly, this is really hard to call because we just don't know anything here. And what we do know about Cortes-Acosta is he goes to decision a lot. And I think that if we're going to have the guy that's just going out there trying to rip someone's head off versus a guy that's content to like dance around and throw his jab, I think the power, the length, the size of Despaigne is going to be too much. But like I said, we're guessing at this point. Let me know what you think. Featherweight division, we have Sean Woodson taking on Alex Caceres. Woodson's 4-0 and a draw in his last 5 fights, 3-2 for Caceres, who has looked career best as of late. In his last 5 fights, the guy has shown everything from his career, which he got to the UFC very young. He's shown all of that experience and everything just coming through, and finally he's hitting that stride in the UFC. Now, I know 3-2 isn't the best, but it's not bad, right? It's a winning 5 on in. We're looking at 4-1 for Woodson as well, or 4-0-1, so it's a draw. But, level of competition, I would say Caceres has fought the better level of competition as well, and I don't think that's crazy to say. So ultimately, that matches up pretty well when you weigh in for the competition. Sean Woodson's going to be the better striker, especially in the boxing realm for this matchup, right? Good using his range, puts together combinations, has a quick jab. But ultimately, when he corners guys up against the cage, he just unloads with volume, and that's where he does his best work. Now, he does have surprising kicks. They don't look pretty necessarily, but when he lands them, I mean, he's so freakishly tall, and he's got long, bony limbs that when he lands those kicks, they do pretty good damage, and they kind of surprise you. Decent grappling. His takedown defense is very good, and he has those choking arms, right? When you're long and lanky like this and you have to cut down to 145 pounds, you got those long choking arms. Now, for Caceres, the dude's a slick grappler. I think he's going to be far better in the grappling, and I don't think that's crazy to say. Dude's got well-timed takedown entries, and also he can take the back either standing or on the mat. And once he does, puts that body triangle on and goes for that rear naked choke and has pretty good success with it typically. Now, in the striking, dude's pretty good there as well. He's got good movement, timing on his shots. He picks them well. Very accurate, and he has pretty good striking defense. We've seen him hit before and everything like that, but like he does ultimately have a pretty good striking differential, and he does do pretty good at getting out of the way of shots, or at least not getting hit flush. Power isn't exactly his best tool, so I don't think he's going to be just getting those one-shot knockouts anytime soon. I mean, he did against Rosa, but that was just the most perfectly timed kick. One of those crazy ones. But typically the power's not there, but he does have decent striking, and he can use that well to win matchups that way. Ultimately, in this one, I think it's a really tough fight for both guys for different reasons, obviously. And maybe I'm a little biased because I'm a big fan of him, but I'm going to take Alex Caceres in this one as a dog. I think there's a lot of underdogs on this card that I like, and that could be a problem because last time I did that, we didn't go too well. That was UFC 300. But I'm going to take Alex Caceres. I think maybe at some point he takes the back and could start looking for that rear naked choke. I think he can get it. So we're going Alex Caceres, potentially by rear naked choke, possibly late. Let me know what you have, and I'll see you. Ferreira takes on Mateusz Rebecki in the 155-pound division. Rebecki is it Rebecki? I think it's Rebecki, but Rebecki, I don't know. Whatever one it is. He's 5-0 in his last 5 fights, and he's going to be the younger fighter here at 31. For Ferreira, he's 2-3 in his last 5, which isn't great, but he's done pretty well at pulling off big upsets in a couple of those matchups and the 2 wins, right? 39 years old is not exactly what you want to be at 155 pounds, so take that for what it is. Start on the Rebecki side. He's a good wrestler. Takedown defense is there. I don't think Diego Ferreira is going to be able to take him down. I could be wrong. I don't think so. I think if the takedown comes in this fight, it's going to be from Rebecki, who's a very powerful guy who takes guys down and has good top pressure. On the striking, he's decent. Good forward pressure, plenty of power, and that leg kick is absolutely brutal. On the other side, Ferreira, he's got plenty of power on the feet. Good striker in general. Good volume. He can put together some combinations, things like that. But that overhand is what got him the win last time with that just big, powerful shot. Boom, put the lights out. That's it. Game over. Pack it up. Let's go home. Has that ability to do that to people in fights, right? He can absolutely crack. And like I said, he might be 39, but power is one of those. It's the last thing to go. You hear everybody always say that. Power is the last thing to go. Good grappling as well. He's a good back taker, and he really attacks submissions. He's pretty active from his back as well. And the thing that he has is his cardio is great, even at this age. Well, I guess we didn't really get to see it in his last one, but cardio is still there for him. In this one, though, I do think the young prospect probably gets it done. He is the biggest favorite on the card that I know of, at least. And it makes sense. So we're taking Rebecki. Let me know what you have. Light heavyweight. We've got a fun one here. Alonzo Menifield takes on Carlos Ulberg. Both of these guys are undefeated in their last 5 fights. We got 5-0 for Ulberg, 4-0 and a draw for Menifield. Close fight here because both guys have paths to victory and both guys have the skill set to beat the other guy, right? Carlos Ulberg, solid striker with good combinations, works the leg kick well, good counters, and he's able to keep his reign and just point fight when he needs to, but he can also get in, get gritty, get dirty, and do what he has to do there. But he's able to do both, and I think keeping that range and point fighting here is what he's going to want to do, especially early on in this matchup with Menifield, while Menifield's still powerful, dangerous, and his cardio's there. He's got good takedown defense, and you might need that here because Menifield is a powerful wrestler, right? He's got good wrestling, powerful slams. His takedown defense is good, but I don't think we're going to see Ulberg go for takedowns here. Good top pressure for Menifield. Nasty ground and pound. He's got a tight squeeze when he gets on top, and he's a freak athlete. I think that kind of helps him use some of that extra athleticism to get takedowns, and Carlos Ulberg's going to need to defend those takedowns to win. If he can't, I think Menifield's going to be a monster on top and probably cause a lot of problems for Ulberg, especially early in the fight. In the striking, Menifield might not be as polished and as clean, but the dude's extremely fast and extremely powerful. Yes, he can get a bit wild, but we saw in the matchup with Dustin Jacoby, who's also an extremely high-level kickboxer, Menifield was able to crack him. He was able just to, use that speed, power, and athleticism to crack a guy like Jacoby. Stands to reason he could potentially do the same thing here with Ulberg. However, like I said, Ulberg does have that ability to fight at range and point fight. And I think that's how he's going to get it done. So I think we get this one late. I think this is going to be either a late finish by Ulberg or a decision. So I'm going to take Carlos Ulberg here. I'm leaning decision. I think he's going to have to point fight with a guy like Menifield. Menifield does get a little tired as fights go on, but he can often push through that. And I do think that he does have the athleticism to just kind of make things ugly early on and potentially get a win early for Menifield. But I'm going to take Ulberg here. Odds are a little bit extreme. This might be one of them fights where you just kick your feet up on the coffee table, you crack open the ice cold root beer, and you toss that sucker back and enjoy. Like this video. Let me know what you have in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next welterweight. Yes, you read that right. Welterweight. We have Joaquin Buckley, who, of course, has been at welterweight for a little bit now. Takes on Nursultan Ruziboev, who has fought at welterweight quite a bit in the past, but has been so far at middleweight in the UFC. Now, Ruziboev, 5-0 in his last 5 fights, 3-2 for Buckley. The height is going to be on the Ruziboev side at 6'5". The guy's a giant of a man, but the reach is similar, within an inch or so, but I can't find a definitive reach on Ruziboev. Buckley's only 5'10", so that is going to be a big difference. 6'5", 5'10", he's going to dwarf him here. But something that is interesting is Buckley looked pretty good in his last fight, right? But he fought Vicente Luque, who looked like, if you guys remember from that first Space Jam movie, those little alien guys from Moron Mountain that became the Monstars when they came down and stole the NBA players' talent. Vicente Luque looked like somebody from Moron Mountain came down and stole his talent and then sent him into that fight. Because he was looking like the guys in the movie Space Jam out there, not knowing how to dribble the ball, not knowing how to do anything again. Luque just didn't look like Vicente Luque. That wasn't Vicente Luque. I don't know what happened there. Someone stole his talent. Not taken away from the win of Buckley, because Buckley's looked good lately. That didn't look like Luque. So I don't know how much weight I can put into that one. Ruziboev looks good so far, but hasn't really fought very high-level UFC competition yet. Buckley's fought the much better level of competition. He has some pretty solid wins on his resume. Yeah, he's lost a couple, but he does have good wins overall. This is a tough one to break down, right? We got Ruziboev, decent striker, good power, volume, long, straight shots, but he's willing to back up with his hands down, and it's because he's so darn tall, he'll back straight up with his hands down, which is a problem. Now, his height does negate some of the tools of Buckley, and I'm going to go over that in a minute, but you still don't want to be backing up straight down with your hands straight down. Solid grappling. If he gets his grappling going, I think he's got a pretty good advantage here. He's got that length to wrap guys up, big, tall guy, all that good stuff. He seeks submissions, works to advance his position. He's got good sweeps from the bottom, uses his ground and pound to set up submissions very well, and he will attack the arms. He loves the Kimura. He's got a good armbar as well. Now, these type of things don't work as often in the UFC at high levels, but he's very good at them. Takedown defense is suspect, but that's because he likes to look for that sweep, especially the Kimura or Kimura sweep. Now, on the Buckley side, good dude's a good striker with plenty of power. He's got good kicks, works the body very well. He's just going to keep coming forward and doing that. But the problem is, loves the head kick. I don't think he's getting his kick all the way up to the 6'5" Ruziboev, who's going to stand pretty tall. I don't know that he can land the head kick on him. So I think that takes away one of the better weapons for Buckley. And I think he's going to have to do this a lot with his boxing. And maybe he can throw some leg kicks and body kicks, things like that. But I think it's going to be a chore for him to try to head kick a guy like Ruziboev, and I don't think it's going to happen. Decent wrestling. He can mix in the takedowns, and he does stay relatively safe on top. I do think he can stay on top of Ruziboev and win minutes and not get submitted. He might get swept at some point, but he's relatively safe, like I said. So I can see him just controlling on top if he needed to. And he does have pretty good takedown defense. So ultimately, it's a tough fight for either guy for completely different reasons. For me, I'll take the big man. I'll take Ruziboev. I think he can land on the chin of Buckley and rattle him. And when he does that, I think Buckley's going to realize he has to shoot a takedown at that point, and that's where the sub's come in. So I'm going to take Ruziboev to get a submission coming off of a ill-timed takedown attempt after getting cracked on the feet. I do think Buckley's probably the better striker by a pretty good margin, but I just think the size and I think the fact that some of the weapons of Buckley are taken away due to the height of Ruziboev is going to help him a lot. So Ruziboev is my pick. If he wasn't an underdog, I don't know that I would like him this much, but let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the main event. Here we are, folks, the main event of the evening. Last reminder, go ahead and like this video. Also, big shout out to all the patrons, all the channel members. All of you guys help keep things going. It's really appreciated. It helps me out more than you can imagine, and my thank you is so sincere. It means the world to me. So thank you guys. Let's break down this main event. It's a wild one, right? Derek Lewis, Rodrigo Nascimento, heavyweight matchup. The last 5 fights for these two guys could not be more different. 3-1 in a no contest for Nascimento. The no contest, it was a failed PED test or whatever, but he did win that originally, then lost that victory due to the no contest after the PED failure. 1-4 for Derek Lewis, but the level of competition, this dude is fighting the top level heavyweights, not so much. So obviously 11-1 on the career for Nascimento is a pretty good record, but he's fighting a guy with way more fights for Derek Lewis, who's 27-12. So it's tough, and Derek Lewis fights are always tough to predict, especially because you don't really know what you're going to get. But for Nascimento, he's a decent striker, comes forward, has decent combinations. He has pretty good jiu-jitsu, good top pressure. It's hard to take down. He's just kind of like better than all the low-level heavyweights, right? And he does a good job at beating them. On the other side, Derek Lewis, good striker, powerful, good counters, timing. But, I mean, the power is ridiculous, and he keeps it late, right? He can lose a whole fight and then last second of the third round just knock somebody dead. But he throws single shots, and he kind of is banking on that knockout. When it comes to the grappling, he's very hard to hold down early in a fight, but as it goes on, you can eventually start to hold him down. But the reason he's so tough to hold down early is because he's extremely athletic. Guys, this is a tough one. Do I think that Derek Lewis, who's only really losing at this point in his career because he's fighting some of the best guys, can beat a guy like Nascimento who's on the rise? Or do I think that Nascimento has the goods, and the only reason he's not fighting the top level guys right now is because he hasn't had that opportunity? I've got to go Derek Lewis. Especially we're in St. Louis. How do you not pick a guy whose name is literally Lewis? I don't know. Doesn't really check out. We're taking Derek Lewis for... Maybe it's because I want him to win. I don't know. Real tough fight. Don't be betting on this one. Just watch the main event. Who knows? It could be really boring. Could be slow. Could be Nascimento lays on him for 5 rounds, which would be awful. Or it could be, you know, a lot of standing around staring at each other till Derek Lewis lands a knockout. Stay away. Just watch this fight and enjoy. But thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate all of you. I will see you guys next week for a breakdown. If you have any questions in the comments, drop them down there. I do appreciate it. See you soon.